Do you feel that you could have spent more balancing time than throwing all of your mental energy towards your work, as opposed to, the family life suffered and...
There's a lot of things you will look back on and think that you should have done differently.
Right.
Such hindsight views do not benefit us whatsoever. They just make us lament and mourn what could have been.
Right. Well, did it affect you being so mentally focused that your health, did you feel like you felt out of balance, or were you pretty good at kind of just keep going with the mental? Because I know when I'm focusing on the spiritual stuff to the detriment of my emotions and my physicalness, my body lets me know. Did you have any such experience with you?
As I was, in a way, neglecting my body. I smoked. I went beyond hours of not eating because, I forgot. You just ignore the hunger pains and the headache just becomes background noise.
You learn to just defocus on it and just override it. Well, that's a useful gift to have when you're trying to complete something. And, but these days, they're real big on learning the balancing of the four components of your humanness. The other thing I wanted to talk about was, I'd like to talk about the pacifism. I can't say that word. What was it about the environment of war, of conflict, that made you so strongly into being a peacekeeper, and yet having to go back and such on that peacekeeping mentality by writing that letter to Roosevelt, advocating, the use of extreme measures to stop what could be a catastrophe, with Hitler, with the race to the arms. I mean, can you talk about that? That's a big step away from what you had said that you wanted, that you were about, the peace part, to saying, okay, maybe the line's drawn, we need to go there and take care of the threat.
Well, think of it from my perspective. I am a new citizen in America, and we still get, almost daily news reports of whether it's a huge article or a footnote of how the war is going over in Europe and in Asia. By 1941, you hear that millions of Germans and millions of Russians have died in defense of Stalingrad or an invasion. And everyone is already saying it's getting worse and going to continue, and that this number is going to be dwarfed by later battles. So, in my relative thinking, I thought of many ways on how you could try to stop the war, deter them from fighting.
Right.
And in one of my, I would say, episodes where I neglected my body when I was past 90 hours of lack of sleep.
Wow.
I had a thought come to me that, going back to old mythology, there were certain things that kept, certain factions or, countries from doing, certain things. And why? Because they were afraid of the divine wrath of the gods.
Right.
Because of a power so, immense that they feared it more than they feared each other.
Okay.
And then I got to thinking that if you were able to have others, fear going to war, not because of each other, but because of a weapon so powerful that it is godlike in its own right, there may be a way to deter them from continuing this war, or maybe even future wars. And essentially became the Manhattan Project.
Which you weren't part of, but...
No, but it sprouted from me. It started with me.
Because of E equals MC squared.
That is only a small piece.
I always find fascinating that scientists and mathematicians and theologians can think symbolically. Even though technically, by us using words to communicate, words are symbols, but to think abstractly, like the Chinese character, the Japanese write symbolically as a communication. But to understand and think symbolically and communicate that way, it seems an elusive art. How did you develop that ability?
It is born out of necessity. If you wish to play the piano, you will learn to read notes.
Right.
You will learn what works and what doesn't. It is something that you forget that humans are empowered today because of our adaptability, because we can adapt to many different things. So if you do not express what we're best at, then what is the point of our race? So we adapt. If you wish to do something, you will learn regardless if your drive is strong enough.
And you have to speak the language that what you want to do communicates in.
If I drop you off in Paris, you will learn French within 2 weeks. I guarantee it.
Immersion theory. Because it's connected to the survival? Is it at that level? Your ability to eat and think and communicate, you have to speak the language of what your environment is? Is that it?
That is only one part. There are other different needs or ways of thinking and different things you need to do. But, yes, going back to the most basic part of it, the higher your need to actually do something, the more likely you will find a way to make it work. So a lot of people don't use this nowadays because they don't want to, and it's extremely difficult to use without that survival need kicking in. But if you are able to take your interest and drive and push forward constantly, you will be able to do anything. You will be able to learn to play the piano. You'll be able to learn any theory there is out there because you have the drive to. Not because you need it for survival.
Because you've moved it as Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you've moved it to the self-actualization level, right? Because you've gone, or because it would move through past esteem, right?
And which is why it is more practical, because you will be able to do it without the overlooming threat of your survival.
Right, because you don't have to worry about that. That is true. Because otherwise you would only be focused upon what you need to keep breathing and eating and so forth.